Hello everyone, it's Adam here. Super excited to talk about the Black Dog Cycle Works, or BDCW as I like to call it, rear luggage rack for the R1200GS and GS Adventure. And this is actually for the GSA, I think, 2014 and later. This is to go on the OEM GSA mounting bracket on the back of the bike. In my case, mine is powder coated black, but if you bought a GSA, you have the stainless steel grab handle and mounting bracket at the very rear. Before we get started, the reason why I grabbed this is because I had previously mounted the RotoPax mounts as a replacement of my passenger seat, but it doesn't quite fit. Basically, the grab handles get in the way of mounting the 1 gallon RotoPax is completely flat in between them on the Alt-Rider passenger plate. So I'm grabbing this. This is going to allow me to put the RotoPax further back away from me, and then I can mount something in the very center, or even still have a passenger sit with me, which would be nice as well. Another thing about this is the Alt-Rider plate. The current version doesn't have RotoPax holes for it, only the older one does, and the older one only has the holes going this direction, so see, up and down, and that causes you to be forced to mount the RotoPax this way, which means that it's going to get in the way of those side grab handles on the motorcycle. Also, when you tighten this down, it will bend the plate and put a lot of pressure on the passenger seat mounting brackets. So I want to be able to mount the new mount side to side. It's going to go like that on the Black Dog Cycle Works pad, and hopefully won't interfere. In addition to that, I also have a 2 gallon fuel canister, and this never would have fit in the old configuration. So kind of a few reasons for doing this. The instructions are clear. Mount the RotoPax up before you proceed with doing this, so I'm going to go ahead and get that started, and then we'll install on the bike. Alright, now that we're over the bike, you actually, if you're mounting the RotoPax in these two slots, they're fully accessible underneath. The issue would be if you were mounting the RotoPax this direction, because this hole here is blocked by the luggage rack there. This is the OEM luggage rack, it's just black in my case, as I powder coated it. So these two bolts here go in here, like this, and then down just like that. That's the configuration. Underneath, you've got about 3 to 4 inches of additional space hanging out the back of the bike. So that puts all the RotoPax stuff really far back, which does add weight to the rear fender, but it's going to free up all this front space for whatever I want. So on the front here, this is what you do first. We're going to be using these large washers that came with it with a locking nut. So using a 13mm socket on the bottom to tie this down, and a 5mm Allen on the top in order to keep this static. So washer through. We're just getting these started. We do not tighten these down yet, so once I get some resistance from the thread, from the locking thread there, that's when I stop, and I'm going to go ahead and do the other side as well. Same thing applies. Got this guy under here, accompanied by the locking nut. That is now on. Get that straightened up. Now let's do the rear. Okay, so now we're underneath the bike. We've got the bolt already going through. We're going to use the same principle as before with the locking nut and the washer. I'll lift this up a little bit. You're installing it this direction, so you see how this is open. The open end goes forward, and the flat bit goes underneath the tank here. And get that centered up best you can, and then put the bolt straight through like that. So now we have the bolt coming straight through the bind here. Now this is still present. You're going to have to bend this to get this in. There we go. Washer through, and then the locking nut right on there as well. And again, just get that started and don't actually tighten it down yet. I want to raise your attention to something too on the back here. If you can see, this is the two washers right here, and then the big ones right here. I want to make sure this is centered dead center on both of these. So I'm gonna do some measurements to make sure I'm even on both sides before I actually tighten these down. Switching over to a 13mm wrench instead of the socket. Starting the tightening process. We're gonna do a little bit of each side because it will shift a little bit, so I'm gonna get a little bit closer on each side. And then finally finish tightening down once I'm happy with it. This side. And now the rear, which I can actually use the socket for the rear. Just placing this directly underneath and holding on tight. These are locking nuts, so you're not going to need thread locker with these. Okay, I'm going to stop right there and I'm going to take my measuring tape out and make sure this is aligned. We did the rear, now we're going to do the front, and everything is dead center, so there won't be any moving. So by doing the back first, we basically keep these from moving at the front. Alright, so now we're going to mount the RotoPax. And we have 2 bolts here with Loctite on them. I'm just going to go underneath and just get these started. We're going to mount it just like that. Okay, now with our 13mm again, we're going to tighten these down. I don't really know why their instructions said to do the RotoPax first unless you were mounting it the alternative way. It's probably just an easy way to write the instructions without having to worry about anyone messing it up. Now remember with thread locker, you want to give it at least overnight for it to set. At least 24 hours is good. But it'll continue hardening for a few days. Alright. There's that. Let's mount up the fuel tank. So I'm using a double locking system here. So in this situation, you put the first one, the top one on first. In this case, we have a 2-gallon container. Like this. I'm turning this down. We'll just do it this way for now. And then the second one goes on like that. Now if you only needed a gallon of fuel and a gallon of water, you don't need a full 2 gallons, then the setup looks a little bit less wacky. Here's the first one. And then the second one. Like that. So that's our setup. So this has been the Black Dog Cycle Works rack. Let's put the seat back on and show you guys what this looks like with the seat installed, just so you get a nice visual before you make your purchase. Alright, this is the final product. So looking underneath the bike, you can see the front connections up there. And you got the one here that's underneath with the RotoPax holder there buried. And as you come up, you've got your 2 1-gallon containers. You can pretty much keep building these up pretty high, but with the GSA, 1 gallon's enough to get you, at least in the Trans Labrador, it gets you to the next gas station. 2 gallons is in case I have some riding buddies who have less fuel capacity than me. But this is the final product of the Cycle Works here. You can see it there. And then from back here, just like that. Yeah, at this point I've pretty much foregone using a top case. When I do use a top case, what will end up happening is I'll end up removing the Jesse top case rack requires removing the GSA rack completely. So for me that means removing this screw right here, and then that screw on each side right there. And then I take these grab handles completely off, and I replace them with the GSA top case rack. It's 4 screws, not a big deal. but that's the situation. So this is going to be fantastic for my Trans-Labrador trip. And it's very easy to remove the RotoPax bracket and keep this pad. This pad's never going to leave this GSA rack now. It's going to stay here permanently. As far as opening these guys up, you've got great coverage with the Jesse boxes. No hit at all. I think it looks great. I think it's beautiful. So easy install. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope that you enjoyed the video. And if you have any questions, just let me know. But definitely a worthwhile upgrade if you either want to put a winch on the back of your bike, which has the holes for the winch, and then or RotoPax. Can't do both, unfortunately, but I guess one of you guys with the GS gets the RotoPax, one of you guys with the GS gets the winch, and then never ride separate. All right, guys, take care, rock on, and drive safe.